Hit it
I
up.
guess I can. It's the next question right now. It has 23 votes, and
Nice.
it's what is the best way to approach atheist people? I grew up in a Christian household, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but I might actually have Vince talk a little bit about his own experience as he was an atheist for a portion of his life. But my biggest encouragement to you, whoever asked this question, because I think this is something, as somebody that grew up in a Christian household, I've wrestled with that question, because it's kind of like you have your group of people that you know. And if we're not careful as Christians, we can see people with other worldviews. One, we can demonize them very quickly, or we can lose any sense of love for them. We kind of just like, as long as I keep my bubble here, I'm good. So my first challenge to every single one of us, myself included, is to first see every single person as somebody made in the image of God. I think it was C.S. Lewis that says, you never once met a mere mortal. And that's really convicting to me, to think that I've never met a single person in my entire life that doesn't have a form of an eternity somehow, right? Everybody is craving truth. I know that everybody's searching for the answer. Even my friends that will say they're not, and this isn't me trying to answer that question for them, but I'm telling you, we're all searching for answers. One of, I think, the best ways that we can approach our friends who don't believe in a God, or friends that don't believe in the same God as us, is to, one, don't treat them like a project. People very quickly figure out when you've turned them into like a Christian evangelistic project, where it's like, I need to get my friends. I don't think that works. Daniel and I think Vince just talked about the God of the Bible is a God of a relationship. And we need to build relationships with people that disagree with us. One, don't be so quick. I would say to myself, I have to be so quick to not assume that that my atheist friend doesn't have something to offer me. To think that I'm the only one with the, like, I firmly believe that Christianity is the only truth, but that doesn't mean that I've understood everything, and that my friend that's an atheist wouldn't have wisdom to share with me. All these things. There's stuff to learn there, but it's Christ's repentance. It's Christ's kindness that leads people to repentance. We need to find beautiful ways to just love people. And I don't want to say that so willy-nilly, like love is the answer. It's not that. It's what does love look like? It's not as simple as just, I agree with you, that means I love you. It's not that. Sometimes it is that confrontation. But I'm saying find unique ways to love those people in your life and think of thought-provoking questions. That is the thing. I think Christians, we're always on the defense. We're always backing up into a corner. And we're like, no. Ask questions. I think one of the coolest things about Christ is, I think almost every single time somebody asks him a question, he answered with a question. But he's also God, and he knows how to do that thing well. But I think we should learn that. Vince, I'd love for you to talk about your own experience as well.
Sure. Just for a minute, right where you left off, Lou, because when I leaned towards atheism in my earlier years, before I got to college and before I met some Christians who took me on a journey, so many people were trying to answer my questions, but almost no one asked me questions back. And, that's what gets draining as well. I see one of the other questions here talking about how draining it can be, is that, you're just constantly, as you said, on the back foot, and people are throwing things at you and they just say, yeah, but, and you're just constantly trying to answer and answer and answer. And sometimes you need to just respond with a question. And if there's a phrase I could ask you to remember, the phrase is, criticism without alternative is empty. And so if you criticize anything, you say you criticize my phone, you say, Vince, you have a terrible phone. That is a terrible version of a phone. It's fair for me to then respond and say, hey, what's the alternative? You've made a criticism of something of mine. It's fair for me then to respond and say, which phone do you think I should get instead? And if you then say to me, oh, I've never found a better phone than the one you already have, well, then your criticism immediately unravels, right? Then it shows that there's no force to your criticism. And so oftentimes when you are dealing with atheism, there are lots of criticisms being leveled against Christianity, but rather than only answering the questions, ask some questions in return. So if somebody says to you, oh, it's crazy, you think God made the universe just by speaking it into existence? Well, ask a question back and say, yeah, I can see how that could be hard to believe. Tell me, how do you think the universe came to exist? If somebody says, oh, that's a crazy thought to think, you think Jesus actually miraculously, physically rose from the dead? And you say, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see how that would be hard to believe. But historically, we know, not just from Christian sources, but from non-Christian sources, that there were many people right after Jesus clearly had died who were walking around utterly convinced that they were spending time with this man, both his friends and his enemies, both individuals and groups, at one point, more than 500 people at once. How do you explain all those appearances of Jesus after he clearly had been killed? And you might find that the people who are making criticisms don't necessarily have answers to the same questions that they're asking you to ask. Our founder and dear friend, Ravi Zacharias, he said there's 4 questions that you need to be able to answer to have a meaningful life: origin, meaning, morality, destiny. Where did we come from? Where are we headed? What's the purpose of life? And how should we live? Christianity offers, I think, robust answers to each one of those questions. When you're conversing with someone of a different worldview, put all the answers on the table. Say, here are my 4 answers to those questions, but I'd love to hear your answers as well. Then let's put them side by side and see which looks most persuasive.